Welcome to How to Be a Couple with me, your host, Giuliano Gramado. A lot of people are proud of how hard the relationship is, and that is the problem to me. I open social media every day, and because I post about relationships, I get a lot of relationship content. And it shocks me how many people who talk about relationships talk about how hard they are and talk about how they require so much hard work. It's kind of funny to me because my whole message is that it doesn't have to be that way. But this is the thing, like it seems that it is like an epidemic. Like everyone talks about how hard relationships are. And obviously that's an exaggeration. It's not everyone, but it does seem like a majority of people do talk about how hard relationships are. And they say that, you know, oh my gosh, it almost becomes like this rite of passage thing, right? Where you're like, if your relationship isn't hard, then it's not real. Or if you don't put in hard work in your relationship, then you're not going to last and it's not real. It's not solid. But like I said, my whole message is that it doesn't have to be that way. Like it does not have to be hard. And just because it's something that's been normalized doesn't mean that it's true. Right? If you go around talking about how hard your relationship is, I promise you will get validation. Right? People will be, oh my God, yes, relationships are so hard. They require, yep, relationships are hard work. And look, I'm not going to invalidate anyone's experience or tell you that it shouldn't be that way. Who I'm talking to right now is someone who hears that and is like, does it have to though? Does it have to be hard? Because that was me, right? I've heard people for years saying stuff like that. And for me, as a general rule, if most people are saying something, I think that I should question that thing. It doesn't mean it's automatically wrong, but it means, maybe I should examine that and see if it's true or not. And I found that that wasn't the case. Relationships don't have to be hard to be considered real. And you don't have to put in a ton of hard work in order for them to be for it to be a good relationship. So, like, first things first, you have to be willing to question that. And in my opinion, you have to be willing to throw it away because it's not the case. Now, like I said, I'm not going to invalidate someone else's experience, but you don't have to have a hard relationship in order to have a good one. And I'm saying this because I'm not saying that you should exit your current relationship, right? Or that you should end it or do anything like that. What I mean is that having a hard relationship is just simply an option, right? If you want to have a hard relationship, if you're willing to accept that belief that relationships are hard and that they require hard work and that's the type of life you want to live, that's fine, right? Go ahead and do that. But I want people to know that not having a hard relationship is also an option. Being with someone and feeling fulfilled and happy and loved and things being fun and light and exciting can be the norm, can be a regular day-to-day thing. It doesn't have to just be something that you experience one time in the beginning of the relationship, like I talked about in the last episode. It can be something that you experience all the time. Okay? Relationships do not have to be hard. I know I keep repeating myself here, but like I really want to drill this in because it is something that has been the opposite has been drilled in for most people forever, right? It's all you hear about. And especially like when you watch like TV and movies and stuff, it's romanticized, right? That like you look at these relationships in TVs and TV and movies and right, they make for a good story. Don't get me wrong, right? I love TV and movies. Some of you might not know, but I actually am like a paid actor. Like I've been in stuff. So my point, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying like I love TV and movies. I love good stories. I get wrapped up in them and they're fantastic as far as entertainment goes. Okay. It's great. But because of that, because we get consistently exposed to these storylines and these ideas, we think that that's normal. And like I said, it makes for a good story. But if you want to live your life that way, I mean, it's going to be a roller coaster and it's not fun and it's not enjoyable. You can have a relationship where 90%, 95%, 99% of the time, you're happy. Okay, maybe that sounds crazy if you're listening to this and things are not like that, or if it's, flip-flopped, like it's 90% of the time it sucks. Like I know it can be hard to hear that and to accept that and even think that it's possible. Um, but it is. And I actually believe that part of the reason is just simply because of the standard, right? Like when you hear the word normalized, like that's become a thing. Like, let's not normalize that. People say that all the time now. But the reason why is because what you normalize is what you will accept. Okay, so that's why people are always advocating, like, let's not normalize that. And the reason is because when something is normal to you, you accept it. That is your standard. There's this saying, I forgot who said it, that you don't, I think it was John Maxwell maybe, that you don't rise to your ambitions, you fall to your standards. Okay. So you can be like, oh, I really want to have this amazing relationship, but what is your standard? Because that is what you are going to land at. You're going to fall to your standard. And if your standard is, hey, relationships are hard, it is what it is. Relationships require hard work, it is what it is. That's where you're always going to end up. Right. But if you change your standard, if you stop normalizing the fact that relationships have to be hard, and in your mind you go, no, absolutely not. They do not have to be. And I will not settle for a relationship that is below that standard, then you don't have to. So this is like my message to people, is that you have to change your mind around what is acceptable and what is not. And obviously, right, there's so much more to this. And that's what I talk about in all of these different episodes. And I'm happy to, expand. And if someone has specific questions, feel free to reach out and ask. I'm happy to answer them. Um, but what do you do about this, right? So obviously, like I said, there's so much that we could get into here, but ultimately, shifting that perspective will shift the way that you see the relationship. Again, I said this before, I'm not saying that you need to like end your relationship or leave the person that you're with. What I'm saying is that when you set a different standard in your relationship and you stop accepting these things, like that it has to be hard or that it requires a lot of hard work, what that does is it forces you to think, okay, well, how, right? How is that possible? What do I have to do, right? And so your brain, without my help at all, okay, on your own, you will start to search for solutions to, well, what if this could be easy? What if this was easy? What would it look like? What would I have what would have to change in order for this relationship to be easy? What would I have to change about myself? What would I have to change about my perspective, about my philosophy on life and relationships and people in general? Which again, all these things are things that I cover. And so, of course, go take a look at those things. But I also believe that people need to empower themselves. Right. That's why I'm not getting into like specifics. Well, how is a relationship not hard? We'll get into that later, but also trust yourself. Believe in that you have the power to figure this out, because you do. So spend some time answering those questions. Okay, let's say relationships are hard. Let's say relationships can be easy. How? What does that look like? What could I do differently? How would I have to think about things differently? How would I have to view things differently? Explore that yourself. And that's what I got for you today. Okay. Spend some time doing that. If you want to bounce some ideas off me, of course, feel free to reach out. And if you want personalized relationship coaching, I have a waitlist going to work with me one-on-one. Just send me a DM that says waitlist at howtobeacouple.co on Instagram, and I'll add you to the list and let you know when a slot comes up. In the meantime, remember that your relationship doesn't have to be hard. And I actually would love to hear from you about what you think that means for you and what you need to change in your relationship. So please feel free to reach out. But like I said, in the meantime, just remember your relationship doesn't have to be hard. Talk to you next time.